So now that I've had the distinct pleasure of watching someone take a face full of hot dogs on top of my pump top, it's pretty hard to get me fired up about an AIO. But what if I told you there was a way to get AIO performance with no internal USB header, no SATA power lead, minimal wiring on the install, no software whatsoever, and still get lighting effects? I feel pretty safe in saying that people generally appreciate Fractal's minimal design aesthetic, and I think they get held to a slightly higher standard when it comes to implementing RGB. Like maybe they get grilled a little harder when they try to make a move like that. But what I think they've got here is something that holds true to their design language and a lineup that makes sense regardless of which side of the RGB argument you fall on. We're gonna see how it stacks up in terms of looks and performance. You ready? Let's go! Yo, I'm Brian P. You're watching BadSeed Tech, and today we're checking out the Celsius Plus Dynamic all-in-one cooler from Fractal Design. Priced at $129.99 US, we've got the S24 Dynamic on deck today. So 240mm rad and no RGB fans, but the full line has the Dynamic, which has non-RGB Dynamic X2 fans in 240, 360, and 280, in the same sizes in the Prisma version with their AL ARGB fans. And I have to applaud this pricing model here because in essence, you're paying a $10 per fan upcharge if you want to go RGB, or you're not paying for it at all if you're not interested. The pump top itself is glass and RGB regardless of which way you go, and I really like the looks of this thing. Matte, soft touch housing all on the outside of the pump top, and really smart cable management. The fan hub is actually mounted on the radiator itself, all the way at the front, out of sight, in between the tubes, and the wiring associated with it is tucked in along the tubing. You'll find support for a total of 3 fans and the Prisma fans, regardless of which model you pick. So there is an upgrade path here for Prisma fans if you want to do that later. In my particular setup, I don't have any of the RGB fans on the radiator itself, so I'm using the board to provide RGB to the 4 other Prisma fans I have installed in this case. This leaves you with a single braided PWM plug coming off the pump top itself, and a spot on the underside for an optional ARGB lead, which is compatible with all the major motherboard lighting controls. Without the ARGB cable, you get the logo in white with a white ring around, both of which look a touch yellow to me in real life. The additional cable allows control of the ring while the logo stays white, and it also provides pass-through for RGB information to the hub itself. It sounds complicated, but it all results in a really clean install and thicker than usual tubing, which everybody appreciates. Am I right? Physical installation is the one place where I do have to knock this because the AMD setup was a real challenge to get installed. I would have preferred the traditional 4-post setup here for sure. So that's how it looks. And I think by now we've all got an idea pretty much of how an AIO functions. So we're gonna take a look at performance. This is based on an Asetek Gen 6 technology, so I got a pretty good idea of how it's gonna perform. Testbed today is a Ryzen 3900X on the Aorus X570 master motherboard with an EVGA 2080 Super Hybrid. It's all going in a Fractal S2 Vision case, top mounted in exhaust with the vented top being fed fresh air from the front fans. This is not a lot of people's favorite case, but it actually is one of mine. It's gorgeous, and I've had one of my systems in it since the day it arrived. As there is no control software, you can set the mode to auto or PWM by physically rotating a control ring around the pump top itself. Auto mode allows for quieter operation with a designated pump and fan curve. And between 47 to 48 dB, it runs about 2 dB quieter than the other mode. A 10-minute A64 torture test left us with an average total package temp of 89.9 and a max of 101.3. Yikes. Now, in fairness, this is a pretty brutal benchmark. In real world, depending on what you were doing, you might be able to get away with running in this mode, but for that 2 dB in noise savings, unless you're running this somewhere where audio is really specifically going to be an issue, like if it's a media PC in a theater room or something like that, I would probably just eat the 2 dB and go with a PWM setup. Set up a fan curve so that anywhere north of like 70 degrees, it pushes everything to 100%, and just forget about it. In PWM mode, we never exceeded 50 dB. The room noise baseline was 44 dB, and here we saw an average of 77.9 total package temp with a max of 89.3. That's a huge difference. Versus the NZXT X62 that was in place before, it's about 4.5 degrees higher on average in temps and about 2 to 2.5 dB quieter. But the X62 is a 280mm rad with 140mm fans versus the 240mm setup here on the Fractal. So in terms of value, the Celsius Plus is priced right in line with the new X series offerings from NZXT. I like though that if you do want to go RGB on those, they don't put that behind a really steep paywall or force you into any kind of ecosystem. I find the performance to be so similar that like matchy brand loyalty may be more of a deciding factor, but the simplicity here, like no internal USB header, no extra SATA power lead. Without RGB, it's a one cable install. But honestly, for me, the complete lack of software may be my favorite thing about this unit. I certainly have strong feelings about the Gigabyte control software for their lighting in their AIO, which we'll be looking at really soon. And I know there's some people out there who feel some type of way about IQ and CAM software as well. You'll lose the ability to run the pump and the fans at different curves if that's something you want. But again, no software. That's one less thing on your machine to conflict with some other RGB or peripheral control software, which are often the soft spot when it comes to products that depend on those. So the Celsius Plus offers solid performance. It's just cleaner, both in the tidiness of the install as well as not adding any additional software to your system. If you don't care about RGB, that's one less cable that you have to install, and maybe you can get away with not having to use that potentially dodgy lighting control software from your motherboard manufacturer. And if you do want to add a little flash, they don't beat you up too bad on the pricing. It's an easy win for me. I like this one a lot. As always, links to everything down in the description. Any questions, hit me in the comments or drop by the Discord. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button. And until next time, stay up.